Let's start by taking a moment to breathe in and out 3 times, like really deep breaths. Like, let's just do that for 3 times together. Let's do that. Ready? Let whatever's here be here, and there's nothing to fix, nowhere to get to, just breathe, just this moment. Many of us come to this path with a question in our hearts: who am I really? For me, this means, what is my true nature? Thich Nhat Hanh invites us to think of true nature as something, as not something distant or mystical, but as something immediate and intimate. In The Art of Living, he writes, our true nature is the nature of no birth and no death. It is the nature of interbeing. It is the nature of love. What if knowing our true nature isn't about getting anywhere, but about remembering what we already are? Let me share something personal. Some of you know about this, but most of you don't. I had a cat that I was very attached to. I got him when he was quite young. And I just loved him very much. And when he died, he lived for 15 years. And when he died, and I think this is typical of cats, he went into hiding. He never did that before, but he was in a lot of pain. And he went under the bed, and he wouldn't come out. But before he died, I was sitting in the living room, typing on the computer, and he came right next to me, right next to my feet. And I was able to tell him, I petted him, and I told him, I said, I love you, I love you. And within 5 minutes, he took 3 breaths and he died. I find that pretty amazing. At first I didn't think much about it, except how precious it was, but it was profoundly quiet, intentional. And he came back to like connection, to presence, to be with me. But this is true nature. This return to love and connection in his final moment. Maybe it was. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, our true nature is the capacity to be aware, to love, to understand, and to be free from the art of living. In that moment, my cat was simply being, not doing. Just came over to be with me. And that to me is a doorway into true nature. It's easy to mistake our roles, our thoughts, or even our wounds for who we are. But Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. That's from Stepping into Freedom. We are not our fear. We are not our trauma. We are not our judgments. In the heart of the Buddha teaching, another book Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, you are not your body, you are not your feelings, you are not your perceptions, you are not your mental formations, you are not your consciousness. It's hard for us to get that. It's a big one. We are not the sky. No, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. We are the sky. We're not the storm. I know understanding this is also not the answer, but to know our true nature, we must understand we are not separate. But maybe that's the place to begin, that we're not separate. The self is made of non-self elements. Thich Nhat Hanh writes in the heart of Buddhist teaching. This is the teaching of interbeing. We are clouds, rivers, ancestors, sunlight, compost, and kindness. No me exists without you, without the earth, without everything. To know our true nature, we don't need to seek, we need to stop. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. Our true nature isn't hidden, it's just covered like the sun behind the cloud. Through mindful love connection, we begin to clear the sky and we come home. So now we're going to do some exercises. And I meant to bring raspberries and I forgot in my haste. So we're going to have to imagine a raspberry at each one. And the first exercise is going to be to think of this raspberry. And can you see the sunshine, the rain, the soil, the farmer, the picker inside it? So now I'm going to ask everyone to turn to a person next to them. And what do you think of when you think of the raspberry and how it exists in the world in terms of connectedness with other things, beings? So if you would just take a minute and and all the other person is going to do is listen. You're just going to say how you think that this raspberry, like all the things that go into a raspberry, to have the raspberry exist in the world. Just share, and then I'm going to give a handout to you and show you what ChatGPT wrote about all the relationships of the raspberry. Why don't you start with just 1 minute, turn to someone and just say, what do you think it took to have that raspberry come into your life? And I apologize, I don't have real raspberries, which I bought. And you can come to my apartment and I would give you. But I forgot. If you would turn to someone. Okay. Thank you. Now, what I like people to do is to go into another group, like just move, one person move into it so you share with somebody new. And I'm going to give you a handout. Well, Paul is going to do this, I believe. And just,
How did you know?
we're just going to put it one person to a group. I don't think I have enough for so it's just going to go in for a group. So whatever group you're in.
Oh,
Now I'm going to ask you, after looking at this list, just to look at, take another minute apiece, just to look at what you didn't think about, or maybe what I didn't correctly prompt you to think about. I'll take that too. But what else you could have said, or what now this list opens up to you that even expands what you already thought about. So we'll take a minute apiece to share that. All right, we're going to continue. So, and you could we'll have time to comment after. So a lot of you saw the sunshine, the rain, the soil, the farmer, the picker, I imagine, and then you saw the things on this list. And this is not extensive. This is just what I fed ChatGPT, some ideas. So this is probably just a small number of the connections of the raspberry is so much more than just this little red looking object. Now turn inward. What are the non-you elements that make up you? Some of mine are my mother, my teachers, the Sangha, my cats, all the courses I took at UTD, courses I took at City College, courses I took at Lehman College, my teaching. What are the non-you elements that make who you are? So now we're going to do another exercise to share with someone, and you do it for 2 minutes. Some of the non-you elements that make up who you are, and you want to stay in the same group that you were just in?
Sure.
All right. So just, give you 2 minutes apiece. The last exercise, well, there'd be one more, we'll do a closing exercise, but the last group exercise. The prompt is, when do I feel most like myself? Like most at peace and most free? So, 2 minutes and then we'll switch, okay?
Can you repeat that?
When do I feel the most like myself, the most at peace and most free? Thank you for doing it, thank you. At the last, in closing, we're just gonna do a practice of touching the earth. I know a lot of us have done that. So I'm gonna ask everybody to stand, or if they're seated, you could stay in your seat. I will try to do it the best I can. I've had surgery on one of my hands, but, so it's just, what we're gonna do is we're gonna silently say, as you touch the earth, you're gonna silently say, I touch the earth to remember I am not separate. I touch the earth to remember my true nature. I touch the earth and I am home. And then I have a few more words after that, but okay, so it's, I touch the earth to remember I'm not separate. I touch the earth to remember my true nature, and I touch the earth and I am home. So let's just do that and touch the earth if we can. If you can't, just bend forward. Thank you. You are a continuation, like the rain is continuation of the cloud. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote. To know your true nature is not to go somewhere new, it is to come back. Back to breath, back to love, back to this moment. You are already what you seek. Thank you.
Alex made a really interesting point, because we were talking about how, when do we feel most like ourselves? But we had also discussed, like, wait a second, it's supposed to be about non-self. And I was like, oh, he's making a good point. And yeah, I just thought about that. And he said it a lot better than I did, so I'm not going to try to, but yeah, it was just really interesting, got me thinking. I was like, okay. So is it really about us being most like ourselves, or is it when we're most present? And so that's kind of what I had talked about. It's like, when do I really feel most present? Is when I feel most like myself. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
All about it. Thank you so much, Neal. It was a wonderful talk. And in the beginning, there was a quote, something that you were mentioning from Thich Nhat Hanh, and I can't remember all three, but it had to do with elements of love and connection. And I think it was love, understanding, and freedom, and one other one. And so I'm just really struck how understanding for me, when I understand another person, it's just like it opens up the empathy or whatever, the connection. So understanding is such a jewel. So I'm just feeling that today. I had a really cool insight during my meditation today too, and it was because I had a little bit of my welcoming in was acceptance, because I was having judgment towards a particular person that I just wasn't able to let go of. And I was just, and I was wanting to let go of it. You can't really do anything. So it was just like, let it go. And then what arose was just really feeling the wound of the other person. So the wound of the other person really came, and I could understand that my judgment was resisting whatever they're compensating part was their defense. And then I could just really let go into loving, understanding how, you know, like the raspberry came to be, really understanding how that person came to be, how they are. And just really that understanding then just opened the door for love and acceptance. So I felt the acceptance with for myself then and for the other. So
the question itself didn't seem to make sense. But connecting it again with all those connections going into raspberry, really look at it, realize that it's just a very fleeting moment that it looks like a raspberry. We define it as a raspberry. And millions of things led up to that moment. And then afterwards, it might lead to a million other things, right? Somebody eats it, might not get a cancer because of the antioxidants in that moment in that raspberry. So all these cause and effects, all these connections, and we have this mental concept of a raspberry of something constant, anything, but so that connects to that lower self, right? When do I feel most myself, or is it when do I feel most present, or I said, when do I feel most at peace? And you do feel most at peace, I believe, when you both fall in that trap, following that storyline of the thing that needs to be protected and what I need to defend myself against, and why I don't want to understand that other person. Again, there's all those connections, and when you can really, really, really rest in the moment that is solved, all of those, all the inputs, I'm an engineer, that's when you're at peace. That's when you rest. If you want to call that self, that would be my takeaway from the exercise.
Thank you. And we all know that that is, at least for me, it's really hard to do. And that's why we come here. But because the mind is so powerful, you know, and when you have other people under the same delusion, you know, a separate self, it's really hard to, outside of when you're meditating, to not get caught up in, you know, this is me and you, I don't like your opinion, or
thinking about. So when doing the exercise, I have a feeling of when tuning to ourselves, we find peace and we don't need to worry too much. But then I'm thinking, how can we reconcile that with the need to solve problems in the world, the really important problems like poverty, climate change? If we find peace in ourselves and we don't solve those problems, I don't think that's good. That's big problem. There's small problems, but they are important for each of us that we need to solve. And how do we reconcile and find peace? And also, you need to move forward, do stuff.
can't you do both? Can't you find peace within and still move forward and do stuff?
Need to meditate on that.
Going real quick as a response that keeps me a lot. There's a book that we work on every Wednesday in the Interbeing, which is Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet from Thich Nhat Hanh. He was an activist all through his life, and at the same time had as little self as you can possibly have as a human being and still survive. So I'd highly recommend taking a look at that. He says how activism works for a Buddhist in that book. Oh, yeah.
John Bellingham. I've been wrestling with these questions for 12 years. And I remember when I first began struggling with these questions, one morning at the Zen Center of New York City, I asked 3 people what the monastic that morning meant by a particular, and some of you may have heard this story, by something he said during the dormitory. Gokhan Bear said he didn't know. Someone else said, you got me. And the third person, who was a senior practitioner, said, I don't know. And he said, John, you're asking the wrong questions. He said, just go back to your breath. I didn't get it, but I knew I was hearing something really important. So we could sit here and talk about these questions until we're blue in the face. But to me, it's always going back to the basics, the breath and the stillness. That's when I feel the most present, and then it carries over. John Neal.
Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate you listening and, yeah, I think John put the nail on the hammer on the head for the nail. You know, hit the nail right in the right place. That, yeah, it's your breath. And I was sharing with Chris that sometimes when I'm meditating, I go into like a trance, almost like a sleep. And I'm not sure I'm meditating correctly because I'm losing my focus on the breath. And actually, it's come out of this book group I'm in, which you're all invited to. It's, matter of fact, we're meeting this Thursday right here in a smaller room. And we're reading the Miracle Mindfulness. And I really, for the first time, I haven't read a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh book, even though ChatGPT was able to find a lot of those quotes. But as I'm reading the Miracle Mindfulness, I'm present to the importance of the breath in a way I hadn't been. It's making me question, do I need to rethink about what I'm calling meditation? Although I've been doing it a long time, just kind of quieting everything and just getting real peaceful and letting my thoughts come and go and finally quiet down. Anybody would like to make a comment about that before?
John bowing in again. That's why, and this is what I heard also 12 years ago. That's why we call it practice. I remember a conversation I had about 10 years ago, and I only knew him by his Dharma name, Yukon. He was the gardener of the Zen Mountain Monastery. And they came up to him and I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? Anything, John. You've been practicing for 37 years. Is it still difficult? And he said, John, it's working hard as hell. He goes, oh, isn't that interesting? 37 years of monastic, and he's still struggling. Like Thich Nhat Hanh said, I too suffer, but I'm doing the best I can. Gone down now.
It's fine. I think the doubting is also part of it, right? Am I applying the right method? And I believe that Han also said there is no wrong way to meditate. If you sit and focus on your breath, whatever else happens, it's fine. You're meditating. That's one thing that calms me down, and trying not to obtain something all the time. And then playing around with different techniques. There's work on concentration, focus on fire casinos, on a flame or water or whatever. Letting go completely what you're describing, right? Just lean back and just observe the show. Don't focus on anything. Every once in a while, remember the anchor, come back to the breath. And other than that, just watch it. is another approach. There's so many different approaches, and every other book that you pick up describes something else with a different posture and a different type of breathing and a different type of focus point. Hell, your way is your way. But I believe, and as long as you work on it, it's practice.
Okay, we'll turn it back over to Jim. Thank you.